Julius Evangelista used to earn around $300 a month as a jeepney driver. That was barely enough to feed his family, but he says somehow they were able to get by. But life became much worse 2 months ago when the lockdown was imposed by the government to stop the spread of coronavirus. He is unable to work and pay for the house rent in Manila. So they live like this now, in a jeepney, begging in the street just to feed his family.
Yung nakakabiyahe tayo, naghihirap pa.
This is really tragic. I can see how my children suffers. They have scabs from our situation here, and we don't know when our next meal will come.
Christian Garcia also says the pandemic brought more suffering for his family. He used to be a professional photographer, but when the lockdown of the entire region of Luzon happened, work stopped coming in too. He found a job as a delivery driver, earning less than half of what he used to.
Yung image na inaalagaan mo, na professional line ka na.
Imagine, I had years and years of professional experience. I swallowed my pride and rolled up my sleeves just so I can earn. Times are hard, but we simply don't have a choice anymore. It is a matter of survival now.
The Philippine government implemented one of the world's strictest and longest quarantines, a 2-month lockdown for more than 50 million Filipinos. The region of Luzon accounts for at least 75% of the entire economy. Quarantine restrictions were recently eased in an attempt to restore some normalcy and limit the economic damage after 2 decades of uninterrupted growth. But at least 2.5 million Filipinos have already lost their jobs since the lockdown began. And the government says millions more are expected to be unemployed this year. The impact of this health crisis is causing particular suffering to those who had very little to begin with. The government is giving cash aid to millions of impoverished families, but leaders admit resources are already stretched and much of the government's so-called calamity fund has been used up. Those like Julius who have always lived on the fringes say they feel left out. If the virus doesn't kill them, they say, hunger most likely will. Jamela Alindogan, Al Jazeera, Manila. Our visit to this farming cooperative is welcomed, but there are clear protocols. The province of Nueva Ecija is considered one of the Philippines' biggest important food granaries. Romulo Javier says the price of grain has more than doubled after last year's drop in prices. That's being welcomed. But he says the market is volatile and farmers are worried about the future.
We are scared for what might happen next because of this lockdown. Until now, we're still waiting for the promised machine from the government that we were supposed to get from tariff they earned when they increased it last year.
The Philippine government has imposed strict measures to clamp down on the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, putting the entire region of Luzon under what it calls an enhanced community quarantine. It is home to more than 60 million Filipinos, and the closure of businesses has led to a sudden loss of work that is devastating families here. Rolando Valiente owns a 2-hectare pepper and tomato farm and is one of those affected.
Buyers don't really come to Nueva Ecija, as we have to be the one to go to them. When we do, they even dictate the price.
At least 2 warehouses, they say, have closed down here. Now, farmers have to queue for space at trading posts like this one. Before the lockdown, this was just an empty parking lot. Now, this has become a temporary drop-off point for farmers who are desperate to sell their vegetables. Those who are able to sell say they are grateful to get anything, and others say they end up taking their produce back to their farms, where it's left to rot. Some farm owners say they don't want to harvest anymore. Filipino farmers are among the poorest people in the Philippines. Most are in debt, and they say they're no longer able to pay their creditors. And the extension of the lockdown is upsetting many here who believe it will devastate them. They say they need help, and they need it now. Jamela Alindogan, Al Jazeera, Nueva Ecija Province, Northern Philippines.